You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Wednesday, the 1st of May. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Leah Freedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens.
And on today's show, a sprinkle of bee pollen, a lukewarm lemon water, an entire death by chocolate cake. What I eat in a day content is back and all over your feed. Why? Plus, the world's richest comedian says comedy is over, it's been cancelled. So who by and why? And do you have to have sex to stay married? But first,
in case you missed it, if you think your parents are embarrassing on Instagram, let's all take a moment for one Barbara Streisand. Over the weekend, actor and screenwriter Melissa McCarthy posted a few pictures to Instagram from a gala she'd attended. Lovely pictures with a male friend, I think. McCarthy has 13 million Instagram followers, so she predictably got a bunch of likes, bunch of comments. And if this popped up on your feed, you may have seen that one comment rolled in from Barbara Streisand. Lovely. She commented, "Give him my regards," about the man in the photo, before adding, "Did you take Ozempic?" People noticed very quickly.
I love
an account called Comments by Celebs reshared the comment alongside just Babs with exclamation marks. Please, Babs.
I'm living for this.
Streisand then posted to her Instagram story a few hours later, "OMG, I went to Instagram to see the photos we'd posted of the beautiful flowers I'd received for my birthday. Below them was a photo of my friend, Melissa McCarthy, who I sang with on my Encore album. She looked fantastic. I just wanted to pay her a compliment. I forgot the world is reading." She then went back and deleted the comment she'd wrote on Melissa McCarthy's thing.
was that a compliment, Babs?
People are concerned.
Eileen, she did say the quiet part out loud.
Well,
Melissa McCarthy's lost a lot of weight.
Well, people are thinking that maybe Babs was trying to send a DM.
She was.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly she was. Because this is what everybody's doing in their group chats, right? Is sending pictures of either people they know or celebrities just with a question mark.
It's not what everybody's doing, Leah. But yeah, I understand that it's what you're doing for sure.
Others have said Barbara Streisand is from New York. This is how New Yorkers talk.
Yeah.
New Yorkers are like, "Hey, you."
How'd you do that?
Yeah. Like that's what people are asking. I think
Asking
it's
for a friend.
Hello guys, welcome to another day on the plate.
Hello guys, back with another What I Eat in a Day.
This is a day on my plate as a nutrition student and someone who tries to eat a whole food-based diet but also prioritizes balance.
I'm not sure why, but what other people eat is endlessly fascinating. Mostly it's because women like to compare what we eat to other women and what they eat and then feel either smug or inadequate, don't you think? We're
mostly
creatures
inadequate.
of comparison.
I don't think I've ever felt
I'm
smug.
nosy. I used to love that column that was in the Sunday Mag back in the day when I used to buy Sunday
Day on a
papers.
Plate.
Whether it was men, women, whatever, I'm nosy and it makes me think I know you better.
There was another one about what's in my shopping trolley. I do like a little perv when I'm at the supermarket.
Don't you think?
I like seeing what's in other people's shopping
Don't
trolleys.
you think though those columns, they're always lying? I've always gone, "Oh, this person's just lying."
Well,
Not
I don't know.
really telling.
Sometimes they're literally like bacon and eggs, a pie. Like sometimes they do that.
Well, I'm going to tell you about that because they have delivered some very memorable moments, like that time that Pete Evans gave us a heads up that he likes to kick off his day with some sprouted millet, sorghum, chia and buckwheat bread with liver pate, avocado, cultured vegetables plus ginger and licorice root tea.
So you're taking the piss.
Well, that was probably our first indication that Pete Evans hashtag are you okay?
The thing that's worrying
Turns out
about
he
that
wasn't.
is it's not as weird now as it was then.
That's very true. Also, Miranda Kerr's mother noted that at 7:20 a.m. she has a glass of reverse osmosis water with magnesium powder, vitamin C powder, zinc and selenium liquid. I don't even know what that means. My favourite though, I think, was a Circus Oz performer.
See, I care about performers and athletes. I have a little,
Yes.
then you can tell me what you eat because I think it's interesting.
Their name's Astrid Rott, and they said that at 5:30 a.m, breakfast is a juicy lamb kebab while I walk back to my hotel from a night out.
yes, girl.
That I
And
enjoy.
it went on in that vein until 6 p.m. Lunch, or maybe this is dinner, is gnocchi Napoli. I then go see a movie during which I have 2 beers and some popcorn.
Yes.
I loved all that.
It's more like it.
Well, the whole trope of day on a plate, which sort of faded out in the 2010s, is back. it's back to give us an eating disorder more than a laugh, because now it's on TikTok. Instead of celebrities and public figures, it is influencers. And these are predominantly women who have a particular very, very small body size. And there's one, for example, a famous Australian influencer who goes under the name Sarah's Day. She actually used to do those day on a plate. She's now 31, and she said that she stopped because she used to get backlash and people would say, makes me feel bad about myself. And she admitted that back then she was always trying to look a certain way, trying to, eat to basically to be skinny and be shredded and be ripped. And so she stopped doing it, interestingly, because of the backlash towards her. And then now she said she's doing it again. She's 31, she's a mother of 2, and she said, now I'm just about putting healthy things in my body and pooping regularly, her words.
Okay.
And
So she wasn't pooping regularly before.
it appears not.
That should be included in your day and plan.
When you poop times. What do we think? The problem with this, of course, nutritionists are saying that mostly the people who are doing this are people who are restricting what they eat or who are not eating in ways that are particularly healthy, or in fact, they're not telling the truth about what they eat. And this kind of food content is being served through the algorithm to people who are at risk of eating disorders, because that's how TikTok works. If you have a predilection for a certain type of content, it will feed you more and more and more of this. So it is wildly dangerous and damaging, but what can we do? Is it just better to know what someone eats?
No, I hate this. I've always hated this content. But I almost think that this is worse because on Instagram back in sort of the 2010s, it was about who you followed. But now I am served constantly. I am served this model who's probably in her mid-20s, and I am told every time I log on to TikTok, I am told what she's eaten in a day. I don't follow her. I've never engaged. It just wants to tell me.
Because you don't have to, for anyone who's not on TikTok, you don't have to follow people.
Yeah.
If you watch one video about dogs, it'll go, you like dogs, so it'll serve you 8 million dog videos. So the people who are the most vulnerable are getting served the most amount of this content, which is so
And
bad.
I find the content insufferable and boring and irritating and incredibly old-fashioned. I just think this doesn't feel like it has a place in 2024.
Are you not ever curious about what people eat?
Massively. Clearly, as you've all said, if it's being fed to people who are vulnerable to eating disorders and the content is very restrictive, then it is dangerous. But we have to push back on the idea that ever talking about food is dangerous and negative because, and I've noticed this a lot with working and knowing lots of, obviously, women younger than I am. Look, I'm as hung up about my body as the average person. Like, I'm not pretending I'm sitting here going like, oh, but I love food, right? So I follow food accounts. I like seeing people cook things. I like seeing what people eat. And I notice a lot that food is no longer allowed to be a pleasure for a lot of young people. It's like it's dangerous. If you talk to me about what you eat, it's dangerous. If I comment on your food in the kitchen, that's somehow shaming or invasive or whatever.
Well, it depends on the comment.
Yeah, I get that. But, I would never, ever say, I'm sure I've told the story before, of once being in a magazine office and cutting up a banana onto some muesli, which I would have thought was a pretty innocent thing to be doing in the morning. One of the really slim, glamorous women who worked in the magazine with me coming in and going, oh, banana. I wish I could eat bananas at this point. And I was just like, oh, yeah, that's not cool. But the idea that we've pathologized all food and all food content, that it's dangerous, I don't know. Like, I watch some of these videos and a lot of it is very boring. That is the right word, Jessie. What I eat in a day as a 22-year-old who works from home. What I eat in a day as somebody who is a new mum. What I eat in a day, and there's something undeniably pervy and interesting about that.
I want to watch all that content.
Exactly, right? I think if we change our frame a little bit, the other thing that's actually useful about this is it exposes this enormous gap between the way that most ordinary people eat and the way that this very narrow group of beautiful people eat. And it's always been thus. If you look at what Hollywood stars eat, it doesn't bear any resemblance to what we eat. And these people are all sprinkling powders and it's a drop of this in a smoothie of that and it's 25 different supplements on that. Like, that's not how normal people eat. And in some ways, I think they do us a favor by revealing just how strange, out there and expensive it is to eat like a skinny person.
But Holly, in your second book about influencers and wellness culture, you followed that thread and there was a character who really spent all their money and really got incredibly influenced by all of these influencers saying what they ate and all these powders and I do this and I do that, doesn't it just put undue pressure?
I think it definitely does. But I also think that we can, to a point, you can also choose to just go, how ridiculous. Do I want my breakfast to come? I was listening to a celebrity interview the other day and they were talking about what they eat. Because Hollywood people are obsessed with this because they're all on it's not necessarily about thinness, or they wouldn't say so. It's about health and it's about like chemicals and clean eating and da-da-da-da. And the things that this person was making for breakfast and how many ingredients it involved, I'm like,
spirulina pancakes.
It's fantastic in a way for me to know that because I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do it. And you're right, there are vulnerable people, and that character in the book was a new mum in particular, and she was following these women who were blogging, and so she was buying all these supplements and they were all hidden in a cupboard in her kitchen. And I can see that happens, but in some ways I think it's good for us to know that these people aren't just also eating what we eat, which might be a bite of our kids' toast, the only salad that was available in the supermarket. You know what I mean? Like, I think in some ways it's good for us to know that.
I think we've got to say the quiet part out loud. The thumbnail is always the body. Right?
Yes.
The thumbnail is also always a thin body. So really what we're getting is...
The thumbnail means the picture that
comes up.
that you
comes
see.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
So the expertise of this person speaking is thinness. So I've got your expertise. It's that you're thin. Great. I'm going to listen to everything that you say. The other thing that's unsaid is that if you go to Diana Plate on TikTok, on Instagram, try and find a man. Just try. No one cares. It's all about women because women are consuming, because food is coded for women in a way it's not for men.
I know, but sometimes we should push back on that. Like, I know these people aren't, but sometimes we should push back on the fact that food content equals problematic.
But the fact that it's gendered is about women are always trying to get smaller.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's that straightforward.
It is, because when women fast, like when Gwyneth Paltrow does her clean eating and her fasting and her detoxes and all of those things, what's coded in there is thinness, as Jessie said.
But
because it's not cool to talk about dieting. When a man does it, when Tim Ferriss does it, or one of those guys, Jordan Peterson, where they do fasting, that's all about
it's about strength,
biohacking and about strength and about endurance.
I just have to say, which I know I always say when we talk about this, you're not wrong, but I don't think it's that simple, because it is also about health. Women, as we've talked about many times, a lot of women will tell you, I just feel awful all the time and my doctor isn't taking me seriously and I don't know what to do. If you've got autoimmune issues, if you've got all kinds of things, diet is incredibly important. We all eat a lot of processed food that isn't good for us, blah, blah, blah. So it's not all about thinness. Some of it is about wanting to get to a place where we feel good.
I know, but I think that a lot of this, it's about moralizing kind of our conversations around food, and it's also about control. And it's the fact that these people are so controlled in what they're eating. And the other big thing here that's not being said is how tied up food is with class. I just look at this and go, if you can afford fresh fruit and veggies to have all the time, and especially now with the cost of living, and you know how much this is. There's a lot of people that pop up on my feed, say the US, Deep South, and they're saying, this is what I feed my 1-year-old. And it's all frozen, and it's, you know, by all accounts would not be a great thing to feed your kid. And then they get absolutely piled on or whatever, and it's like, this is a class issue.
I think people are saying that. That's where these conversations are happening. Like, it's interesting that very fact that you're being served that. And also, every single time I see some skinny influencer putting her 25 powders in a thing, all the comments will be, that'd be nice, that'd be nice, that'd be nice.
Oh, that's not what I'm saying. All the comments are, where do you get that powder? Where did you buy that? Like, they're about getting thin and basically, and TikTok has a message that comes up that's like, if you or someone you know are experiencing concerns
around... That only comes up on the desktop version of TikTok, which nobody
no one
uses.
Exactly. Okay.
The part that we haven't spoken about that undercuts all of this is money. Follow the money. It's not just a coincidence that this trend has come back. Influencers are businesswomen, right? And do you know where there's a lot of money to be made? Endorsing wellness products, food, diet products. That industry is massive. Powders, potions, vitamins, but also just food, right? So when you're an influencer, the likes of Sarah's Day, she's a businesswoman and she knows the place they get their money from is by getting endorsements from brands. And there is a huge amount of money to be made. If you're serving food content, then suddenly this food brand and that vitamin brand are going to come to you and
And views,
you make money out of it.
Views are money, and everyone knows.
To be clear,
that.
there's nothing wrong with that, but this is advertising and this is consumerism, and we're being sold something, not just the idea of thinness and the idea of someone's lifestyle, but we're actually being sold products. So even if the piece of content that the influencer posts itself isn't an ad, they know that if they start building that type of content, it means that's another type of advertising they can take instead of just beauty or instead of just fashion or activewear or whatever. Oh, I can now do vitamins. I can now do food.
What's matcha?
It's a type of tea, but I'm not really sure beyond that. Oh, maybe you can have it in matcha ice cream.
They're all like, I've subbed my coffee out for my matcha. And it's just they're having 11 matchas a day and I don't know what to do.
I was heavily influenced to buy this expensive green powder, like really expensive that you have to subscribe to. And so this large amount of money comes out of my account it was doing until Brent went mad.
Sounds like
comes
an
out of
MLM.
my account every month for this green powder because back to my point about a lot of women are looking for ways to feel good. I'm like, why am I tired? Why can't I sleep? Why can't I this? Why can't I that? Green powder, all the healthy people seem to be doing that. It's on every podcast I listen to. It's on all my feeds. And so I started taking the green powder. And as always happens to me, whenever I start randomly taking supplements without asking anybody, I got really sick. And the doctor's like, would you stop with the stupid social media influencer supplements? So be careful, everybody.
Mamamia out loud.
Jerry Seinfeld has some thoughts about comedy. Seinfeld, best known for one of the most popular comedy shows ever made, Seinfeld, was interviewed on the New Yorker's Radio Hour and basically said that the extreme left has ruined comedy. Here's what he said.
Nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly, and they don't get it. It used to be you would go home at the end of the day, most people would go, oh, Cheers is on, oh, MASH is on, oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on, All in the Family's on. You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy. They move the gates, like in skiing. Yeah. The gates are moving. Your job is to be agile and clever enough that wherever they put the gates, I'm going to make the gate.
Now, Seinfeld actually statistically has a point, right? Because despite how spoiled we are for choice with various streaming services, a smaller percentage of those offerings are comedy. So they're stand-up, but there actually aren't as many comedy sitcoms coming up. Someone just announced they're offering. There wasn't one single comedy sitcom. So do you reckon he has a point? Is writing comedy by committee inherently less funny? Has it become too politically correct, Mia?
Well, funnily enough, it's not that I'm writing comedy, but I'm literally one of the people who is reading scripts and giving notes. So I can speak to it from that point of view because we're looking at season 2 of Strife and looking at the scripts now.
Some of my jokes have been cut, I'll tell you that.
They have been cut. And I am reading it through the lens of cancellation, but also comedy. And that's not a good lens to be looking at anything through because you're in that defensive crouch. And if the comedy can't breathe, like what often makes something funny is that it's unexpected or that a character, I think we've got very confused that characters have to somehow be community service announcements and they all have to uphold the correct social values of the time. And in real life, some people are mean and some people say inappropriate things. In fact, all the time that happens in real life and then not cancelled. But Jerry Seinfeld's point is that cultural attitudes are changing. So he's not one of those ones who are like, burn it all down, political correctness, like Louis C.K. and David Chappelle and Ricky Gervais. He's not that. He's more saying cultural ideas and standards change and a comedian's job is to change along with them but still be able to find the funny. And so that's what he was talking about, gates. And he said that when you're on stage doing stand-up, you can feel that in an instant and you adapt accordingly because the room, if they don't like something, you'll feel it if a joke doesn't land. We've done live shows. We can also feel it. Like sometimes you go, oh, this is really funny, and it just does not land in the room. either because it's offensive or because it's just not funny enough. And that's the art of comedy, surely.
And it feels with comedy sitcoms, or in fact with any comedy, right? If people are watching it in their homes, you think that you have a window into their homes via the internet. But the internet skews everything because the people who critique are the loudest, because you actually don't get a sense of how hard people laughed. And as you say, cancellation is one thing. I think that the imagined cancellation is almost more insidious.
So when you're writing, and obviously when you're writing something funny that will be performed, how do you know if it's funny or not? Like, when was the first time that you actually heard people laugh at the jokes that you wrote in season 1 of Strife?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you would have people going through the script process laugh, or you get in a writer's room and you feel like you can feel the funny, because you can see what animates people and what makes people snowball and go, that's happened to me. And comedy is also about having a character go up against social convention. So social convention is this. We know this is inappropriate and she has just overstepped. And that's meant to be funny. But then someone reads it on a piece of paper and might go, oh, that's not going to land well, which is also a superpower. In our comedy podcast, Cancelled, I have had a producer cut something, stop me and go, actually, this is how it could. And it has saved me and I owe them my life because that's not what I meant. But at the same time, we have something that we refer to here, which is a vanilla Frankenstein, which is when so many people get involved in a project that the nub of the idea becomes so diluted that it is no longer funny or powerful. I think Jerry Seinfeld has a point in this, that streamers, in fact, it's become so triple, quadruple handled by you've got the writer and then the distributor, but then you've got the streamer and then you've got all of these people. And then, Netflix might get cancelled for a joke that's said on this show.
But Netflix don't care. I agree with everything you're saying. Writing by committee is very hard. But it's interesting that, to me, Jerry Seinfeld sounds like he's yearning for a simpler time when we all came home and turned on the telly and all agreed about what was funny, and it was Mary Tyler Moore.
And
right?
him.
And him, yeah, exactly. And the truth of it is we probably have never watched as much stand-up comedy as we do these days, because Netflix will host a special by an enormously diverse range of comedians, from the most offensive, the people who get protesters outside their shows, to, someone from very diverse ethnic backgrounds and something very niche. Like, they will host a whole range of things, and they're like, all care, no responsibility, right? They're going, not my problem. That's Dave Chappelle's joke, not ours. In fact, I really wish that comedians would stop saying you can't say anything anymore, because that's just self-serving to them. Like, it's good for Dave Chappelle or Jimmy Carr or Ricky Gervais for everybody to tell everyone else how dangerous they are. It's instant PR. If there's a headline in the Daily Mail or whatever that says, this joke offended so-and-so, people are like, click, oh, that person's on tour. That sounds like the more fuss we make about these things.
That's become their brands.
Yeah, it becomes their brands, and it's good for them, right? I do obviously agree that I think it's probably harder now to cut through to a mainstream channel because, as you've said, you've got a lot of sensitivity readers almost going, not that, yes, this, and all those things. But in another way, we've never been hungrier for what we see as slightly dangerous, unfiltered conversations. And you're having those in comedy, certainly on stand-up. And this whole, I can't say it, so I'm going to say it thing has just become another marketing technique. Personally, if I click on and I know that I'm a snowflake, whatever, you're a skilled comedian if you can make me laugh without shitting on somebody else. If I click on a Netflix special and the whole thing is just pushing at provocative, predictable woke buttons, I'm just out. Not because I'm offended, but because it's lazy. It's much smarter to write jokes that don't shit on everybody else, and also just slightly pushing against the idea I can go home and I can watch Fisk.
Hey, Bladen Talk, TORK, Talking Fitness. What's your FOC, Helen?
My what, sorry?
FOC, fitness of choice. What's your fitness of choice?
Oh, I walk my dog every day, so yeah.
And for fitness?
When I'm walking my dog, sometimes if I remember, I clench my bum, so I would say, yeah, clench walking is my FOC, yeah.
And Fisk is the funniest show on Australian television, and it offends nobody. And
I love that show.
Same with Colin from Accounts. That's funny.
30 years ago, I was going through the most intense pain I'd ever experienced in my life, and that includes Ashley's teenage years. 28 hours I was in labour.
Wow.
28
hours.
It was
not 28 hours.
Sorry, darling, but it was 28 hours and 49 minutes.
Oh, I think you add an hour every year.
You weren't there, darling.
Wasn't I?
You know what I mean.
Also, his idea that the comedy sitcom is dead. I mean, a few things. There are a lot of really highbrow dramas that have skillful, brilliant comedy writing.
Like Succession.
So Succession.
I'm the eldest boy!
White Lotus. It filters in there. The other thing with comedy sitcoms is why write another one or commission another one when everyone's just watching Friends? People can watch Friends this year and then next year and then the year after. And I also think...
Which is a bit sad.
Yeah, it is, because you want more of it. But comedy is flourishing in stand-up, in TikTok, in sound bites. I would also say that he says, everyone went home and watched MASH or Mary Tyler Moore. There are a lot of people who didn't find those shows funny.
Yeah.
And actually felt alienated by those shows or felt alienated by
100%.
Seinfeld.
Yeah.
You just didn't hear them. And so now having different, whether it's niches or...
I mean, he's pining for the monoculture.
He really is. And also in some ways, there was Schitt's Creek. It was a massive moment. We've all been, the reason Jerry Seinfeld's even talking is because Curb Your Enthusiasm's just finished, which is one of those shows that if you're into it, you're into it. Massive comedy. Like there are plenty of examples of this. And I have to say, I don't watch that show, but the bits of it I've watched, it's not exactly playing it safe.
Oh my goodness. I watched the finale, which every episode has been against my will. And look, it's genius comedy. It's not for me. But I was watching the finale and I went, you're not allowed to do this. And Seinfeld actually made a really good point about it. He said Larry David has been grandfathered in because he's been there for so long and because his audience have followed him and also might be of a different generation. They're like,
South Park is the same.
Yes, exactly right. They get an exemption. But if you're writing something now for a Gen Z or a millennial audience, they wouldn't let you get away with it.
Are you happy with that park?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
You're way outside the line. You're taking up 2 spaces.
I'm like an inch over the line.
No, you're a foot over the line. You're taking up 2 spaces, and the next car is also going to be taking up 2 spaces. Then you're going to leave, and then that car is going to get blamed. This is chaos. Society can't function like this.
Mamamia out loud!
Every Tuesday and Thursday, we drop new segments of Mamamia Out Loud just for Mamamia subscribers. Follow the link in the show notes to get your daily dose of Out Loud, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers. Does marriage, or a long-term relationship that looks a bit like marriage, have to include sex to be successful? It's an age-old question that's been reawakened online as a whole bunch of relationship tropes are being questioned and redrawn. A big piece in the New York Times this week by Amanda Montell spoke to several couples in different stages of life who had deprioritized sex in their relationships. There was Rose, who's married to Will, who says that their cozy domesticity is her favorite thing about their relationship, but it's also completely killed her libido. That is not uncommon, it has to be said. She says that she knows that her mother and her mother's generation might have felt the same, and they had sex that they didn't want, like the once-a-week maintenance shag, but that's not the kind of relationship Rose wants to be in. Then there's Michelle and John, who are newish parents, and Michelle says that motherhood has completely changed her relationship with her body and with being touched. These days, Montell writes, Michelle masturbates in the morning while John takes their daughter to preschool, and he masturbates at night in the bathroom while watching porn on his phone. For John, it's merely a physical release.
I wonder if there's a chart on the fridge.
My turn.
Or if it's just a shared Google Calendar.
For John, it's a physical release, but for Michelle, pleasuring herself serves a different purpose. She's trying to figure out what makes her feel good in this new body. Another woman, Emily, who's older and now a cancer survivor, says that her 34-year marriage has had very sexual periods and very asexual periods, but that where she and her partner have landed now, post all they've been through, they've just agreed that sex is no longer a priority in their relationship. Now, I read every word of this story. I am always fascinated, just as many of us are, by what other people are doing.
What's in your bed?
Yes, exactly.
A day in my bed.
A day in my bed.
Yeah.
Just like I devoured that Nikki Gemmell column last year that we talked about how she was welcoming a post-sex world in her marriage. It's not because I'm in or I want a non-sexual marriage, but I'm obsessed with how life changes us on this topic. Because I remember being a young woman and really confidently declaring to people that I was a very sexual person. And I remember when a friend told me...
because you wanted a boyfriend?
No, I had a boyfriend, believe me.
Oh, you.
When a friend told me that she would rather cuddle than have sex, I remember being genuinely nonplussed. I did not understand it. But then at this phase in my life, I don't recognise that person. Yeah. Genuinely, I don't. With all the things...
Holly said, I'm Holly Wainwright and I'm a very sexual person.
Exactly. You'd all be like, what? When? Because
When do you fit it in?
I think that with everything that shifts in your life, whether it's motherhood, whether it's hormones, whether it's just the wrestling with long-term attraction, sex goes up and down. So you kind of think, I'm like this. Women are like this. Men are like this. We're like this. But everything shifts. So all this to say, is sex still really the defining characteristic that draws the line between friendships and romantic relationships? Or are we rethinking it?
I reckon that this is a backlash to a sort of hypersexual, sex-positive world where sex positivity means that you have to feel positive about sex at all times in all contexts.
And doing all the things.
And doing all of the things. And I reckon, similar to Day on a Plate, that for a long time the people have been lying. People always lie. Oh, how often do you have sex? Oh, like 1 to 3 times a week. You read that in an article 20 years ago, and now that's just what you say. People are lying.
Between 1 and 3
times a week. What's average? That. We frame less sex as a bad thing, but there were some interesting theories about this, which is one reason why people might be having less sex is because of consent. Yes. So it's people are going, I don't want to have sex.
Oh.
That might be a full sentence. And Emily Nagowski, who is a writer about sex, says that low desire can sometimes be evidence of good judgment, which I think is very true.
Oh, that's great.
And for a lot of women, I feel like how many times a week you have sex or how many times a month or how many times a year you have sex has been another domain in their life in which they're failing. So it's things might be going well and you might be doing the motherhood thing all right or you might be doing the job thing all right, but are you...
Oh, no, we haven't had sex in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then what? You both have sex, which neither of you really feel like doing. Because why? Because you think that that's the hallmark of a romantic relationship. I'm just not sure that's the case.
It can be a way to connect, though. Sometimes, is there such a thing as maintenance sex?
Well, that's what this woman was saying, is that she thinks that the idea of maintenance sex is a generational thing and that the younger people, I don't want to like Rose in this article, are like, I wouldn't be doing that. If I don't want to have sex, I'm not having sex, which is back to your point about consent, Jessie, and why maybe people are having less sex might be that.
So appointment sex or obligatory sex is very out. And a lot of
date night.
Sex researchers are kind of saying, nah, that's not entirely necessary. But that was very in vogue 10 years ago, that you would have a date night or that you would every, and if that works for people.
Do you know why? I was reading about the bristle response, which has been actually defined as an involuntary motion that you make when your partner tries to touch you because you know that touch is their way of wanting to initiate sex. It's a bid for a route. And what can happen is that at the beginning of a relationship, there's a lot of physical contact. You're holding hands, you're kissing, you're touching a lot. And as time goes on, that wanes and it can then get to the point where the only time that your partner will touch you or you will touch them is to initiate sex. So you know that if someone comes and kisses you, it's not just because they're feeling that they want to kiss you, it's because they want to have sex with you. And so that involuntary bristle, what that then does is make the person who touched you, who notices, feel ashamed and guilty. And that can start a really, really bad cycle. I once wrote a story about the sex gap, and that is the gap between how much the person who wants sex the most wants to have it and how much the person who wants it the least wants to have it. And the bigger that gap, the bigger likelihood that you're going to have a problem in your relationship.
Because all of this about deprioritizing sex for whatever reason, like the people in this story, because of new parenthood, because of age, because of familiarity, The question is whether or not that's a good thing or not is what comes next, isn't it, really? It's like, do you both feel the same way? If you don't feel the same way, are you prepared to have a conversation about how you fix that? Whether that's, okay, it's fine for you to be in the bathroom watching the porn on your phone, like that couple.
Or we open up our marriage.
Or you're allowed to sleep with other people, but with these parameters, or all of those things. Because really, that's what comes next, isn't it? If one of you says, this is a part of our relationship that was important, but it's no longer important to me, deal with it, then almost like any other part of your relationship, if you're just saying, deal with it, it's going to bubble up and bite you on the bum at some point.
The other thing I wonder if we're undoing it a bit is this expectation of masculinity that men, they want to be having sex at every moment of every day. And I think that in undoing masculinity, we're hopefully liberating men a little bit, not from their own urges, but from that expectation.
There's a lot of women out there who want sex more than their male partners. You know, in a heterosexual relationship, it's not just always the man who wants sex more.
Yeah. So it's not even just about two sexual urges within a private relationship. It's about the gendered expectations of how much I should want or should be having, which seems entirely irrelevant. And then the pressure on in the article, they talked about, you know, people getting into their 80s, 90s, and the hallmark of a strong romantic relationship is that you're still having sex. And it's like, if you don't want to be having sex at 92, I don't think that culture has any right to be making its way into your bed.
It's so true that it's a pinnacle. I remember very clearly in my early days of mothers group, our babies were about 8 weeks and we met, and one of the mothers came in and she said very confidently, she was like, so who else is trying for number 2? And all the people around the table just all went like, oh, because
Am I allowed?
But they were also just thinking like, that means you're having sex all the time. And a lot of those women were not feeling sexual at all, and for various physical reasons and various emotional reasons, and everything has changed in your life and they're trying to readjust. And that's a cliche that isn't true for everybody, but it certainly can be true. And to your point about men, Jessie, we need to have a deeper understanding of in the same way that we're not all at a set point. Like 22-year-old Holly with her like, how could you say you'd rather be cuddled? Is like a 16-year-old boy and a 50-year-old man are in quite different stages about how they're going to feel about that too. So it's like, I think we just have to accept how much things change and wane. And flow, wane and ebb and flow. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. Brisbane, it's almost time. It is tomorrow night. Mamamia Out Loud Live, presented by Nivea Cellular, is coming up. We are so excited to see you all there. We're planning the show. Look, it is going to be absolutely wild. Melbourne and Sydney, you can get your tickets via the link in the show notes. Follow us at Mamamia Out Loud on Instagram, or follow our own personal pages to see all the behind the scenes of the show.
Holly and I are heading to the airport after this.
We are so excited.
Who's going to get lost first in the terminal?
Mia and I wandering around an airport together is always an amusing thing.
So amusing.
We usually get talking, and so we don't notice when the gate's being called, and then we've got too much luggage and
one of us will lose our bag.
Yeah.
No, that's usually you, Jessie, but you're coming tomorrow.
And not because of the airline, but because I left in the food court.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Lose our bag before we get on the plane, like our handbag. Now, can I bring my significant other is a question that Travis Kelce didn't have to ask this week when he brought
Can we talk about that
his
soon?
significant other to his cousin's charity situation.
Oh, if my significant other was Taylor Swift, I would be bringing her to
everywhere
the shopping.
Can we not? Do we say significant other?
Significant
it gives
other.
Me the ick.
Does it? Why?
On Mamamia, actually, we did a story and it was like the term girlfriend is cancelled. Travis Kelce has cancelled it, and I'm like, really? Why are we so serious now?
Well,
significant other. Anyway, I digress. Sorry.
You know, it can be really annoying when people ask, can I bring my partner? Or maybe you've got a partner that you want to bring. Maybe you're the partner that is being asked if you can be brought. On yesterday's episode, we unpacked this. There's now a formula to decide whether you can bring your partner if you have one. And we have a bit of a story about all of us who've had that kind of situation, particularly what Holly did when Brent came to coffee and he wasn't invited.
He shouldn't have come.
Here's a sneak peek.
I have, not that long ago actually, turned up to a breakfast thing with a friend where I thought Brent was like, he was coming because he doesn't get out much, whatever. But then when I got there, it was clear, I could read the room, that my friend wanted to talk.
Yeah.
So I literally...
Did you make him go home?
Well, I just made him go and sit at another table. Like, And he didn't mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of...
by himself?
In an ideal situation, we are comfortable. I was literally like, babe, I can tell so-and-so wants to just have a chat. So do you want to go over there? That is his idea of heaven. Sitting in a cafe on his own, like looking at his phone for half an hour. He was like, yes!
We will put a link to that episode in the show notes, and you will know a lot more at the end of it than you did at the start.
Thank you for listening to us on Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. This episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman. We've had audio production by Leah Porges. And Brisbane, we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Is anyone else going to say bye? I'm just going to sound like a goose.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry, I was checking my phone.
It's my pantomime. Bye.
Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and you want to support us, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do so. There's a link in the episode description.